The emperor who declared war on the ocean would soon learn the sea remembers every insult. In the year 480 BCE, an emperor looked at the ocean and decided to attack it. Not metaphorically, he sent soldiers to whip the waves. This was not madness. This was power, pride, and an unforgettable warning to nature itself. The man was Xerxes I, ruler of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, the most powerful man in the world at the time. His empire stretched from India to Egypt, swallowing entire civilizations. But when Xerxes planned to conquer Greece, he faced a challenge not from men, but from water. The Hellespont, a narrow, dangerous strait separating Asia from Europe, was the key to his invasion. To Xerxes, the ocean was not an obstacle. It was something to be commanded. Xerxes' engineers devised an audacious plan: build a pontoon bridge across the Hellespont so his massive army could march over the sea. Hundreds of ships were lined up, anchored, and tied together with enormous ropes. Wooden planks covered their decks, creating a floating road nearly 1.5 kilometers long. It was a marvel of ancient engineering, and a declaration that nature would obey the king's will, but the ocean didn't care. A violent storm struck. Towering waves smashed against the ships, tearing the ropes apart like threads. The great bridge, days in the making, collapsed into the water. To Xerxes, this was not just bad weather. It was defiance. The sea had dared to resist him, and in his world, resistance had only one answer: punishment. Xerxes issued an order that sounds unbelievable even today. The sea was to be whipped. His men were to strike the waves with chains and sticks, delivering 300 lashes. According to the ancient historian Herodotus, they shouted curses at the water as if it were a living enemy, and in Xerxes' mind, it was. But Xerxes didn't stop there. He ordered the sea to be shackled. Great iron fetters were thrown into the water, as though to bind it. To modern eyes, it's absurd. To Xerxes, it was symbolic justice. The ocean had disrespected the King of Kings, and this punishment would remind it and everyone else of his supremacy. With his enemy punished, Xerxes commanded his engineers to build a new bridge. This time, they used thicker ropes made from papyrus and flax, better anchors, and more ships. Against all odds, it worked. The second bridge spanned the Hellespont, a path for an army of over 200,000 men to cross into Greece. When Xerxes' army stepped onto the bridge, it was more than a crossing. It was a victory over nature. His soldiers marched to the beat of war drums, banners fluttering. Behind them, the fettered sea lay silent, as if subdued by the emperor's will, or perhaps simply biding its time. Herodotus tells us this story with both awe and disbelief. Was it an accurate account, or a dramatic flourish to show Xerxes' arrogance? Ancient historians often mixed fact with theatrical flair. But one thing is certain: Xerxes had the power, the resources, and the ego to make such an event entirely possible. Why would an emperor declare war on the ocean? In Xerxes' world, the ruler was chosen by the gods to dominate all creation. To accept defeat from mere water would be unthinkable. By punishing the sea, Xerxes reinforced a dangerous idea: that human will could bend nature to its knees. There's another layer. The spectacle wasn't just for the ocean, it was for his people. The soldiers who whipped the waves weren't truly fighting water. They were reinforcing the king's legend. It was psychological warfare on an empire-wide scale. Nature, of course, doesn't submit to threats. Xerxes would go on to win some battles in Greece, but eventually face crushing defeat at Salamis and Plataea. The ocean he had punished would later play a role in sinking his fleet, perhaps serving its own silent revenge. Over time, Xerxes' ocean whipping became a symbol, not of power, but of hubris. The story has been retold for centuries as a lesson. No matter how mighty a ruler, nature remains beyond our control. Yet, there's something undeniably human about wanting to try. To the Persians, Xerxes' war against the sea was not comedy. It was ritual, ceremony, and statecraft woven together. This was an empire where symbols mattered as much as swords. The spectacle reminded his people that their king's reach was cosmic. He could command not only cities and armies, but the very elements. In a world without satellites or weather apps, storms were signs from the gods. And here was Xerxes, not praying for calm seas, but punishing them into submission. To his subjects, this wasn't arrogance. It was proof that their ruler could keep chaos itself at bay. Yet outside Persia, the story became something else entirely. Greek writers painted Xerxes as a tyrant whose ego blinded him to reason. To them, whipping the ocean was the perfect image of barbaric excess, proof that Eastern kings were slaves to their own pride. It wasn't just history, it was propaganda. By retelling this episode, Greek historians sharpened a cultural divide. East as the realm of decadence and hubris, West as the land of reason and restraint. The whipping of the sea thus became a mythic weapon in a much larger war, not of armies, but of ideas that would echo for centuries. Centuries later, the episode still fascinated storytellers. Medieval chroniclers cited Xerxes as an example of kings who overstepped the natural order. In Renaissance Europe, artists painted the whipping of the sea as a cautionary allegory, often placing the king in richly exaggerated robes, his soldiers frozen mid-strike. The tale became less about Persia or Greece and more about the timeless warning: if you mistake dominion for control, nature will remind you who's in charge. And perhaps that's why the story survived, because no matter the century, humanity has never stopped testing the boundaries of its own power. Modern historians debate whether Xerxes literally whipped the waves or whether Herodotus embellished the scene for dramatic effect. But even if partly fiction, it carries a truth deeper than dates and facts. Power often demands public performance. Xerxes' ocean punishment wasn't about changing the sea. It was about changing how people saw him. The bridge, the whips, the shackles, they were all stagecraft for an audience of thousands. And if the sea was his unwilling co-star, so be it. But history has a wicked sense of irony. In 479 BCE, less than a year after his victory over the Hellespont, Xerxes' navy met disaster at the Battle of Salamis. Greek ships, smaller and faster, trapped his fleet in narrow waters. The sea he had punished now decided the fate of empires. As the wreckage drifted, perhaps somewhere in the roar of the waves, there was a reminder: you can whip the ocean, chain it, curse it, but you will never own it. Today, the whipping of the sea feels absurd, but maybe that's why it's unforgettable. We've traded whips for oil rigs, chains for dams, yet our instinct to bend nature to our will remains unchanged. Every skyscraper in a hurricane zone, every city built below sea level, carries an echo of Xerxes' defiance. We might laugh at his hubris, but history suggests we haven't learned much from it. The question isn't whether we'll face nature's retaliation, it's when. The tale of Xerxes and the ocean is more than a curious footnote. It's a mirror. It reflects our endless dance with nature, our pride, our refusal to back down, even when the odds are cosmic. Whether fact or fable, it asks the same question across 2,500 years. When the tide rises against us, will we adapt or will we draw our whips? If you enjoyed unraveling this strange corner of history, imagine how many more hidden stories are waiting: empires, kings, and moments so bizarre they almost sound made up. Let's uncover them together.